How do you sell something without actually selling it? So, when I got my first sales job, I was in college and I just needed a job. I didn't care what it was, I just needed a paycheck. So, a friend of mine who was working at a call center, he got me in. And I didn't care what it was, as long as it paid and it was morally ethical, let's do it, right? So I get in, they give me a script, they tell me it's a sales position. They tell me that I'm going to be sitting at a cubicle and I'm going to be basically a part of a dialer system that would dial out hundreds of people a day. They gave me a script and they gave me rebuttals, and it was a basic 1 day training, and I was off to the races. They said, here's your objective. Your objective is to get a social security number from the person you're talking to, as many as you possibly can. Get the social and then transfer the call to a loan officer on the other side of the building who will then close the deal. That was it. You get paid an hourly rate and you get a small commission based on the number of social security numbers and transfers you do. Fine. First call that I get, social. Transfer it over, boom. Second call, not so much. Third call, social, transferred, boom. Every day of the week, I was making this happen. It was easy for me. Now, 2 weeks later, I get promoted to a loan officer role. This is where things took a turn. As I peered back and saw behind the curtain now what was being done, my numbers started to tank. This was a subprime mortgage lender. I had no idea what a subprime mortgage was. I knew what a mortgage was, but I had no idea. I was in college. Again, I did well when I was dumb and blind. I was reading off a script. I was doing well. I was interacting. But the moment that I knew what our product was and the impact it was having on people, my numbers went down and I couldn't do it. I couldn't close. Fast forward a couple years later, I'm now selling a product that caters to a certain demographic in the United States. Now, we were changing lives, but we were saving lives in some cases. It was so rewarding. And guess what? I became the number one producer on my team within about 4 months. Shortly after that, I became the number one producer in the company. Now, this is significant because this was the number one ranked financial services company in the country. From there, at that company, I became the number one sales manager. And then I went on to build a division there that became the most profitable division in the company. Within my tenure at that company, I coached hundreds of salespeople on how to become the best versions of themselves, and I was hugely successful at it. So let's take a look back. Let's start at the beginning. What was the difference? My first job, my first sales job, I was selling a product I didn't believe in. The impact it was having on people's lives, I couldn't stand by it. Therefore, when I tried to close and I tried to transfer that emotion, when I was trying to present to these people what we would be able to do for them, it fell flat. Once I got to a job, a position where the product I was offering was moving people, it was having a profound impact on their lives, guess what? My numbers went up. To sell without selling, the number one thing that has to be in place, you have to be selling a product that you know in your heart of hearts is going to have a profound impact on the person or the company, if you're selling business to business, that you are serving. If that's not the case, you're going to have a very difficult time being a successful salesperson. Now, I don't know about you, but for me, I can't sell something unless I'm 100% bought in behind it and believe in it with every ounce of my being. You have to have conviction, and that conviction comes from first believing in what you are selling. And you have to understand your product on a deep level and see the impact it's making on your prospects. And that's where that conviction and that belief comes from. So that's the foundation. Number two, to sell without selling, you have to create an environment where people want to buy, and you have to stop trying to convince or pressure people to buy. So I coached a very intelligent sales rep many years ago. He was on a final write-up for sales production when I started coaching him. And his manager flat out told me, look, I need you to coach him up to where he needs to be or else he is going to lose his job. This is his third and final write-up for production. And it was boggling the sales rep's mind. He knew he could do this job. He has an MBA. He's a very, very intelligent man. And he's like, I don't understand why I'm not getting it. So we listened to some of his calls. The first thing that stood out was, number one, he was desperate. Now, in sales, we all need that deal. That's how we provide for ourselves, for our families. We need every deal we possibly can get. But we have to have the mentality that we don't need the business, we want the business. So this sales rep, he came across as needy. So in desperation, he would try to convince his people to buy. He would pressure them. And when they said no, he offered discounts. He would then devalue himself. And because of that, there was no differentiation between him and the competition. This happens to so many salespeople. Have the mentality that you don't need the business. That if they say no to you, it's okay. You have 100 other people lined up outside the door who want your product or service. That's the mentality you have to have. And prospects don't like to buy from a needy salesperson. The next thing we discovered in listening to his calls was that he was just checking the boxes, meaning he would qualify, right? Okay, check, 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 and then present. So many people do this. So many salespeople do this. They check all the boxes, and once the prospect has fit the criteria, they go and pitch. But checking the boxes and qualifying, although extremely important, you have to qualify, or else you might be wasting time on someone who doesn't qualify or who doesn't need it. But qualifying, checking those boxes, that amounts to about 10% of what you need to get them to a yes. So what we did was, after that qualifying section, you qualified them, you determined they are a good fit, they qualify. Now it's time to get into the real discovery. So after qualification, find out through asking very good, thought-provoking questions where the prospect is currently, here, and where they want to be, here. Once these 2 points have been identified, then the in-between gets revealed. So everything in between these 2 points, which are goals, pain, problems, consequences if those problems don't get addressed now. And from there, you ask digging questions to go deeper on those things and to get the prospect to open up and elaborate on that. And as they talk through those things, as they're responding to your questions, they're reflecting on the situation. They're reflecting on the problem. And they're feeling things. They're feeling the weight of those problems. They're feeling the satisfaction they would get if they address those problems through your product or service. And what happens? There becomes a desire that they create themselves through answering your questions, a desire to fix the problem, a desire to accomplish the goal, a desire to get from where they're at now to where they want to or need to be. That's what it means to create an environment where people want to buy. No convincing. Draw them in by asking those questions. Last but not least, number 4 on how to sell without selling. Get comfortable asking uncomfortable questions. Many years ago, when I was selling, I remember going to a team leader to review a deal for me. So back then we had a review process. The sales rep would do a discovery call, and then they would have to take that sheet, right? It's like a benefit worksheet, to a team leader, a manager, who would then review it, sit down with you, ask you questions. Their job was to make sure that it was sold, that we're not just pitching or presenting to someone just for the sake of doing so, but we're pitching someone who's already essentially said yes, right? So they would ask a series of questions to ensure that the deal was properly sold. So he's asking me, this team leader, so, okay, well, what about this problem? And I'm like, I'm not sure. He's like, okay, well, their 401k, what's the plan B when they run out of their 401k? And I said, I don't know. He said, okay, how much are they drawing currently on their 401k? And I said, I don't know. He said, okay, well, what's the tax penalty? At what tax rate are they paying on the draws from this 401k? And I was like, I don't know. And he said, okay, well, why don't you know? I said, I didn't ask. He said, why didn't you ask? I said, I don't know. I think I was uncomfortable. It's just not something I was comfortable asking. And then he said, what he said next was the most profound lesson, one of the most profound lessons I've learned in sales. He said, Greg, the question that is the most uncomfortable or difficult to ask is the question you have to ask, and is the question that holds the keys to unlock the sale. to open the door to the business. And he said in this situation, he said, look, you're trying to find the pain, the problems, where our product fits into their life. Well, look, if you would have found out how much they were drawing on their 401k and how much they had left in there, you could have determined how much longer they have before it runs out. Understanding how much they're paying in taxes on that, you could have determined at how much of a faster rate they're actually going to draw through that money without them even realizing it. And if you would have found that out, you could have then inserted the benefit and the value of our product that works like their 401k but has zero tax penalty on the draws they take on that money. He said you asking those questions was the doorway to you inserting our solution and them seeing the benefit of it and being able to compare it to what they're doing now and seeing that they can use our product as a safety net when they do inevitably run out of their 401k funds. And I was like, oh my God. Anyway, I took that advice and I ran with it, and it paid dividends. So oftentimes when you're doing discovery and you're trying to figure out, okay, which question should I ask next? All you have to do is listen. Don't think about what you're going to say next. Just listen while they speak. And naturally, the question that you instinctively want to ask will come up in your mind. That's the question to ask. And if it's an uncomfortable question, don't shy away from it. That is oftentimes the question you have to ask. And here's another thing that I learned through asking difficult, uncomfortable questions. When you do so, you are taking the role as an advisor. We need the prospect to buy from us because they trust us. They feel like they know us. They feel like they can trust us. And a trusted advisor would ask these types of questions. By asking those questions that only a trusted advisor would ask, they will then begin to interpret and see us and perceive us as one. So get comfortable asking uncomfortable questions. So let's back up. Let's go to the very beginning, okay? Because we're talking about asking uncomfortable questions. We're talking about not just qualifying, right? But qualifying and then getting down to the root of the discovery, the root cause of why they need what we are selling. And then prior to that, we're talking about having that mentality of, I don't need the business, I want your business. And if you say no, it's okay. I have 100 other people outside the door who want this. So I don't need your business, but I want it, right? Not operating from a place of desperation. All of these things are impossible without the first, which was have an impenetrable belief, an unshakable faith in what you are selling. An impenetrable belief in what you are selling and the impact it's going to have on your prospect's life or situation. It all starts there. When the faith and the belief and the conviction in what you're selling and the impact it has is there, when you have the mentality of, I don't need your business, I want your business, and you're not desperate, when you go beyond just checking the boxes and qualifying, but going further to understand what's going on, where are you now, where do you want to be, and let's find out everything in between. And when you ask the questions that are oftentimes uncomfortable, but ask them anyway because you're a trusted advisor, and you know by asking these questions, you're going to get to the root cause that ultimately is going to change their life or their scenario by doing business with you. Doing each of these things, you will be able to sell without selling. Ask any top tier elite salesperson. Ask them, when you're done selling, when you've closed a deal, do you feel like you convinced anyone? Do you feel like you sold? They're going to say no. I'll tell you from my experience, I don't feel like I sold somebody after a successful sales call. All I feel is that we had a great conversation, and I don't feel like I convinced them to do anything. They actually, the prospect feels like they're the ones who came to the conclusion themselves. And that's what sales is all about. Do these 4 things. Get these right. This will be the foundation of your business. And you will start experiencing what it's like to sell without actually selling. If you found this video helpful, like it, comment. I want to see your guys' feedback. Please comment. Did you like it? Did you love it? Was it in between? Do you want to see me cover a different topic? Please comment and subscribe to the Cleverclosers channel. Thank you guys for watching. I appreciate your support more than you'll ever know. I will see you guys on the next one. Take care and happy selling.